You know, I never imagined that a journey could change the very core of who I am. I've been to a lot of places in my life. I've toured the world with my comedy. I've seen the glitz and the glamour. I've seen heartbreak and joy, but nothing prepared me for the moment I set foot in Mecca and Medina, walking into Mecca, feeling the atmosphere, feeling the devotion. It's indescribable. It hits you in a way that jokes, laughter, or anything I thought I knew about life simply can't touch. There's this energy, this hum of faith, of absolute surrender, of a community bound together, not by nationality, not by fame, not by wealth, but by something so pure, so deep. It makes you rethink your entire existence. When I stood before the Kaaba, it's not just a structure, it's a symbol of unity, of humility, of the human connection to something far bigger than ourselves. And I felt my ego, all the noise I carry around with me, just melt away in Medina, walking through the streets, visiting the Prophet's mosque. It's surreal. It's like time slows down. The history whispers through every corner, every stone, and you can feel the weight of centuries of devotion and love. I remember sitting there just watching people pray, listening to the call to prayer echo through the city, and I thought, this is what life is meant to feel like. Not the chasing of fame or laughter on a stage, but this quiet, profound connection to humanity and God. I had moments where I literally could not stop crying because I realized how small I am, yet how connected I am. And it's terrifying and liberating at the same time. Every person I met, every soul I encountered welcomed me, not as a celebrity, not as a foreigner, but as a fellow human being. And it humbled me beyond words. I had conversations that opened my mind to things I didn't even know were closed inside me. I had moments of reflection, of understanding, of gratitude that I carry now like a secret treasure in my heart. And you know what shocked me the most? It wasn't just the spiritual magnitude. It wasn't just the sacred rituals. It was how deeply ordinary and human it all felt. People living simple lives, yet their hearts were full of a devotion and joy that no comedy, no applause, no worldly success could ever replicate. And I came back. And I'm not the same Colin Quinn who left. I carry a sense of peace, a sense of purpose, and an awareness that life, true life, is about connection, humility, and understanding, not the superficial distractions we often chase. Mecca and Medina changed me. They cracked open a door I didn't even know existed, and I feel compelled every day to live in a way that honors that journey, that respects the lessons, that keeps me grounded. And I tell you, if anyone ever gets the chance to experience this, do it, because nothing in the world, nothing can prepare you for the way it transforms you from the inside out. And let me tell you, the more I walk those streets, the more I realized that this journey wasn't just about seeing holy sights or ticking off a spiritual checklist. It was about confronting myself, my own ignorance, my own preconceptions, and my own superficial understanding of faith and life. Every step I took in Mecca, every time I joined the pilgrims circling the Kaaba, I felt this incredible sense of humility, this almost overwhelming awareness that I was part of something so vast, so timeless, that my everyday worries, my petty frustrations, the anxieties that I carry around like a backpack, they just seemed so small, almost absurd in comparison. And in Medina, walking through the Prophet's mosque, seeing people of every color, every nationality, every background praying side by side, I felt a sense of unity that is impossible to describe in words, a silent language of devotion that transcends borders, politics, and human divisions. I remember sitting quietly, just observing and thinking, this is what humanity is capable of when it aligns itself with something higher than itself. And I couldn't stop thinking about how much of my life I've wasted on trivial things, on ego, on fame, on trying to impress people who don't matter. There were moments when I wanted to just sit on the floor of the mosque and let the world pass by, to soak in the peace, the reverence, the sense of history that surrounded me, because it was so powerful, so overwhelming that it demanded my full attention, my full presence. I met people who had walked hundreds of miles just to be there, people who had faced unimaginable hardship, yet they radiated a joy, a serenity, a gratitude that shook me to my core. And I realized that their lives, simple as they seemed, were richer than anything I had ever experienced in my comfortable, chaotic, noisy world back home. And the conversations I had, oh my God, the conversations. People shared their stories, their struggles, their hopes, and I listened, and I laughed, and I cried, and I felt more alive than I ever had in a comedy club, more human than I ever felt on stage performing for thousands. I felt my heart expand in ways I didn't know were possible. A kind of empathy, a kind of love that isn't limited to family or friends, but a universal compassion that connects every living being. And it made me question everything about the way I had been living, the choices I had been making, the person I thought I was, and the rituals themselves, the prayers, the humility, the way every act is designed to focus the mind, the soul, the heart. It's transformative. Standing in the crowd during prayers, feeling the collective energy, hearing the cadence of the prayers echoing in the air. I felt both insignificant and infinite at the same time, like a drop in an ocean that is both small and yet contains the essence of everything. And I knew in that moment that my life would never be the same again. I've returned home carrying that experience like a sacred flame, trying to integrate it into a world that often feels disconnected, chaotic, superficial, and I struggle every day to live up to the clarity, the humility, the devotion I witnessed there. But even the struggle itself has become meaningful because it reminds me of the depth of what I experienced, the life I glimpsed, the humanity I felt, and I can honestly say without exaggeration, without hyperbole, that journey to Mecca and Medina was the most profound, most life-altering experience of my entire existence. One that reshaped my perspective, my priorities, and my soul, and I carry it with me always, in every breath, in every thought, in every step I take forward. And as I continued reflecting on my time in Mecca and Medina, I realized that the journey wasn't just external. It was entirely internal, a mirror held up to every corner of my soul, forcing me to confront the parts of myself I had ignored, denied, or simply never acknowledged. I thought I knew what humility was. I thought I understood devotion. I thought I had a handle on gratitude, but walking among millions of people, each one moving with purpose, each one surrendering to a higher power with complete sincerity, I saw how shallow my understanding had been, how distracted I had been by trivialities, by the noise of modern life. Every prayer I observed, every person I met, every moment of silence in the sacred spaces, it chipped away at my cynicism, my sarcasm, the comedic armor I wear to shield myself from vulnerability, and replaced it with something I didn't even have words for at the time, a raw, unfiltered sense of awe and reverence for life itself. I remember sitting quietly in a courtyard, the sun setting over the minarets, the call to prayer washing over the city like a wave of light and sound. And I had this overwhelming sensation that the world, in its complexity, its chaos, its brilliance, was not just something to endure or observe, but something to be fully embraced, to be fully felt, to be honored with every fiber of your being. And then the people, I cannot stress this enough, the people I met changed me just as much as the places. There was an old man, his face weathered, hands calloused from decades of labor, who spoke to me about patience and persistence in a way that made me feel ashamed of how easily I complain, how quickly I become frustrated. There were young students, barely older than my own children, who radiated hope, curiosity, and faith in a way that made me rethink the limits I place on myself, the doubts I allow to hold me back. And there were families traveling together, praying together, laughing together, reminding me that love, connection, and devotion are not abstract concepts. They are lived experiences, tangible and profound. And the joy they carry is contagious in the purest sense of the word. I felt the weight of history, yes, the stories of the prophets, the centuries of devotion, but I also felt the weight of the present, the shared human experience that unites us across time and space. And it made me question everything I thought I knew about the meaning of life, about success, about fulfillment, about what it truly means to be alive. Every night as I returned to my room, exhausted from the day's spiritual and emotional intensity, I found myself unable to sleep, replaying moments, conversations, prayers, the faces of people I had met, and slowly realizing that the journey was not something I could ever fully capture in words. It was something I would carry silently, internally, forever. And when I returned home to the familiar chaos, the familiar routines, I saw everything differently. Every interaction, every task, every laugh, every struggle, it was all imbued with new significance, new depth, because I had seen a way of living that was honest, humble, connected, and eternal in its essence. And I try every single day to hold on to that awareness, to let it shape my actions, my thoughts, my relationships, my work, my comedy, everything. Because once you've glimpsed a life lived in that light, in that presence, in that surrender to something higher, nothing else feels sufficient. I cannot tell you that it was easy. I stumble, I forget, I get caught up again in ego, in distraction, in the mundane. But even those moments remind me of what I've seen, what I've felt, what I now strive to live up to. Mecca and Medina taught me that life is both fragile and infinite, that the human heart is capable of unimaginable devotion, compassion, and joy, and that the greatest journey any of us can take is the journey inward, guided by humility, faith, and connection to others. And I can honestly say, without exaggeration, without embellishment, without hesitation, that the Colin Quinn who returned from that journey is not the same man who left. I am transformed, challenged, humbled, and yet invigorated in ways that I am still discovering every single day. And I know I will carry the lessons, the experiences, the people, and the sacredness of that journey with me until the end of my days, letting it ripple through everything I do, everything I say, everything I think, and every person I encounter, because Mecca and Medina showed me the true power of presence, the depth of human connection, and the extraordinary potential of a life lived with purpose, devotion, and humility. And if anyone out there ever gets the chance to take such a journey, I can tell you from the bottom of my soul, do not hesitate, do not doubt, because the impact will be lifelong, life-changing, and utterly, completely indescribable, and it will stay with you forever, just as it stays with me every single day in every thought, every breath, and every step I take forward.